Let's go into that professional career side a little bit, right? So you said you own multiple small businesses. What does owning multiple small businesses look like? Like, because you say owning, but not necessarily like, what kind of work do you do inside of the businesses that you own, and what kind of businesses do you own? Talk to us a little about that.
That varies. So the goal when I left consulting, and like I said, I was a partner, so I owned part of the company that bought me out, had a little bit of a runway. My goal is to go acquire businesses that operated with relative autonomy, whereas the owner didn't have to be the one doing all of the work. So that's what I set out to pursue. I didn't really know how to do it, but learned a lot, tried, failed, succeeded, all the things. So I've got businesses that run where I talk to the general manager for maybe 15 minutes a week and make a visit every couple of months just to show my face, but that's like the extent of what I do. And I've got another business that's maybe one more level of involvement higher than that, where it might take up 2 to 3 hours of my time a week. And there's one business that I am the CEO of, and that's what takes most of my like working energy, but it's still probably 20 hours a week. But other than that, yeah, I've got like this small but growing portfolio of businesses that when I buy the business or when it first comes to me, I'll spend some dedicated time there for the first couple of months, just learning it and making sure I understand the culture, making sure I understand the business, all of the processes, the vendor relationship, the client relationships, our team, so that when a decision needs to be made, I have the context to do that. But I never take on any of the day-to-day activities even in that scenario. So even if I'm like really engaged in the first couple of months, I make sure that if there is a gap in something that needs to happen on a day-to-day basis, I'm not the one picking it up and doing it and finding the right person to do that, so that 6 months down the road, I'm not doing it and missing my son's baseball game or, whatever the scenario is. Or we can go on a 6-week trip like we did last summer.
Awesome.
So that's what I've been focused on. The one that I'm the CEO of, obviously, kind of ebbs and flows a little bit more and demands a little bit more time. It's growing very quickly. I've got a great team there to handle all day to day, but I'm still pretty heavily involved in strategic stuff.
Is your plan to hire out the COO or CEO eventually? Is that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. This is a joint venture partnership between me and a large hospital system.
Okay.
And the goal is absolutely to get to a size that has the CEO in place. And we're pretty close to that, to be honest. That business has taken an interesting turn, and then we might get acquired or merge with another business so that there's a little bit of gray area of what that looks like for me.
Oh, nice.
Even if it's the right thing for the business and the rest of the team. So that's my next challenge as a dad, a working dad, is like to understand how that new scenario might impact our family life. But I'll go into that conversation of negotiation and knowing what's important to me. Whereas before, what's important to me was I'll do whatever it takes for the company, get the best paycheck and the best package, and I'll figure out how to do family stuff. So now I'm going into this negotiation with like, okay, I've got to protect this first.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to offer you, my new partner or whatever. And I've been clear with them about that up front. So we'll see. It'll be an interesting exercise.
So at 8 and 10, your kids probably, I don't know how much you talk to them right now about the businesses, but I would imagine they probably can. Are they a part of these types of conversations to be able to say, hey, this is what we're looking at? Or how does that go?
Probably been the most fun thing about the last couple of years with that was, they're both super smart, and every parent says that. So they can with a grain of salt, but they're both like enterprising young kids. I've actually been also intentional about having them understand the responsibilities of being a business owner and how, so they hear, let them and ask them to listen to conversations of mine where I'm like talking to employees. They're making decisions about insurance or all these things. And they know like my daughter's age, like my daddy's boss of 4 companies or whatever. But we talk about like what that means and not that there's this, certainly no entitlement from their end. Like it's not just the run stuff over here. Like they understand that it's like a really cool responsibility and it's challenging. So they're part of all that stuff. Hopefully they see the hard work and that it actually means something when you're employing somebody else. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. My 8-year-old, I don't know, a month or two ago, something like that, had said something along those lines to me, like, Dad, are you an employee or an employer? and it's like, oh, well, this is going to be a fun conversation, like this is awesome. And it's the same thing, like, having to explain that, well, I'm an employer in a lot of these businesses, I'm like explaining what it means to have employees and how, I'm taking care of them and like that we help provide them paychecks to support their family and how all the things work. And it's really fun to be able to have those conversations. My oldest being 8 years old, and your youngest being 8, it makes me kind of go, all right, well, clearly he's been doing this for a couple of years if my son is starting to do this now. So to me, it's a lot of fun and I really look forward to continuing it. So
yeah.
Any advice you have on talking to your kids about the business and stuff, I'm more than happy to, as a little background, I don't think I told you this before the call, but I told people like why I started this podcast. I said, because I want to sit down with other dads who are entrepreneurs and learn from them and take as much of their good ideas as I possibly can. And if somebody else likes it in the recording, that's great. If not, then at least I get to steal the ideas. So give me some ideas for me to steal. Like, how do you structure the conversations? What's your decision behind what parts of the conversation you have and what parts you don't? Or is it more just kind of free flow, whatever comes up?
No, it's free flow. I mean, man, we've tried the family board meeting and being consistent about like actually having set times where we're talking about things and, varying degrees of success. We do have family values and we do goal setting, individual and family goal setting every year, which has been great. But when it comes to business conversations, I've heard other people talk about this too, like just not doing that in a silo. So they're aware of what you're doing, I think and letting them listen is probably as powerful, if not more powerful than any other thing you can do. And then, hey man, what did you think of that conversation? Did you understand what we're talking about? Questions you have, and trying to just then have a conversation like, yeah, did you hear how hard that was? Or do you think I did a good job? Or how would you feel that differently? And then from there it goes into explaining the context, then hopefully they're absorbing out of the bigger picture of things. And you see that manifest when they say things like, are you an employee or employer? They'll make connections later on that is really surprising to me. But I think probably the biggest thing is just allowing them to be there and listening when you're having some conversations every now and then without it being like the only thing that they know you for, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I guess the thought process behind the saying, like, your kids don't learn from what you say, they learn from what you do, right? I have a tendency to always have my door to my office shut. I'll take some business calls in the car with the kids in there. I've got 8, 4, and a 7-week-old, right? The 4-year-old, not quite. I mean, he hears some of the stuff, but it's a little more difficult for him to understand daddy's on the call and let's calm down a little bit. But the 8-year-old, like just having business conversations around him is fun because he does ask a lot of those questions. Like we did a tour of a business that we have up in Atlanta and we drove up to Atlanta, walked them around, and I got to explain it was a assisted living facility, a memory care facility, and get to kind of show him like what we're doing and what we're rebuilding. And like, he was very interested in what we're doing. And I thought it was a lot of fun. I look forward to doing more of that, right? Because I've sold a majority of my stuff personally over like the last couple of years because it's been a great time to sell real estate. Now it's not a great time to buy real estate, but I tell you what, the amount of deals I underwrite to just completely walk away from is a massive amount of a waste of my time, but it is what it is,
Flex, that's all right.
I got to keep the muscles moving. I know you and I have talked about me wanting, like, I would love to go buy some businesses. I would really like to be able to do that. I don't really know necessarily what to do, but I'd love to learn it. And I have been talking about doing homeschooling with the kids because I'd like to involve them a little bit more in this type of stuff. I work from home, I've got the flexibility. We have an au pair. So like, I've got the assistants at the house for when they're not doing stuff. I could have an actual business class with the kids doing actual business stuff. I think that would be really cool.
Well, no, man, we've talked about alternative schooling for a couple of years. We did move my son into a Montessori school this year, actually, but it's still public school. But that kind of change of pace has been interesting and good for him. But my wife is a teacher, so she works at the school. So her calendar is tied to theirs, which makes some things easier, but that calendar is so strict that like that kind of flexibility, I'm a little bit more of selfishly. I want to be able to say, hey, let's go to France for 2 weeks in September.
Yeah.
Which I am doing this year by myself because they can't like miss school, right? Like,
yes.
Or, I'm going for a guy's trip and like, it would have been fun for them to tag along for parts of it, but like that kind of example of I've tried to get my wife to think about homeschool and she's absolutely no way. But she's a teacher